Today I'll be going over the script to radiant relationship and how each affects the other. How to set up your objects in Radiant affects your scripts, and how you script affects how you can set up your objects in Radiant. With some little considerations, you can make your objects in Radiant so that your script will not have to change much, even when your requirements change, such as more doors or more shootable Easter eggs. Today I'm going to design a shootable Easter egg from scratch, and when we are done, you will have a basic outline to build from. Let's start off by making a new script. I'm going to save that script in my script.cm folder as script to radiant tutorial.gsc. Going to add some instructions. Make my namespace just tut, then script to radiant tutorial. I'm going to add some notes for myself of what I want to do. I want to shoot a number of objects. Then I want to, after each object is shot, delete it. And after all are shot, reward the player. That's simple enough. Now we're ready to start our Radiant to script planning. So I want to shoot a number of objects. So I'll add a trigger damage. Then I'll add the model that I want to shoot. I'll make it a script model. Now I'll select first the trigger and then the model and press W. If your model is a shootable model, this can be done in a different way, but for the purposes of this script to radiant relationship tutorial, I'm just going to do it this way. So now select just the trigger and give it a target name of, let's say, script to radiant tut. Okay, now we're going to resize the trigger and move it over the model. And we're going to select both the model and the trigger and save it as a prefab. And we're going to save it as script to radiant tut map. Now that I have my prefab, I can go to my script and start designing what I want it to do. I'll leave Radiant open just in case my designs or requirements change the prefab requirements and for KVP reference. Every script has what to initialize it. Some say init, some say main. It all serves the same purpose. Next, I'll sum up what I want to do. I want to initialize an Easter egg with a specific KVP. So I'll thread a function passing this KVP. And our new function we'll name get EE objects. It'll get an array of objects with this KVP we passed and thread another function on each of those. Okay. So the next function we'll call handle shootable. we'll set up the behavior of the object. Handle shootable will also wait for the object to be shot, and then after each is shot, we'll thread another function from it that will check the EE or the status of the EE. If one is shot or if they've all been shot. So let's turn it into real scripting now. Thread get EE objects with KVP we set up in Radiant of script to Radiant tut, which was the target name. Target name script to Radiant tut. Next we'll update the next function's arguments with the value and the key. We can actually set up a default argument of target name here, and then we won't need to pass this target name here because we usually use target name, so why type it in all the time? And next we'll get those trigs. We'll get an array of them. And we'll get it by the value that we're passing in and the key, which would be trigs equals get entity array of S to R tut target name. Then we're going to thread on each of these using thread all trigs. We're going to thread handle shootable. Using this array namespace requires us to add a using for that from array shared. Now we'll want to track how many are shot, so we may want to do multiple shootable Easter eggs, so we'll make how this is tracked an array, and we'll make it a level array so that we can check it anywhere. So we'll name this level shootable EE. But if we have multiples, that will run every time, resetting our array. So we only want to do this if not is defined level.shootable EE. Then I'll want to define it as an empty array. Otherwise, if it is defined, and once you do define it, you'll want to say that this value, this EE, has this many items, and that would be the size of trigs. You could have also more simply initialized this shootable as the first thing in your first function. And then all of this wouldn't even be needed. It's up to you how you do it. You could also prefer to update it before you thread handle shootable. In the handle shootable, we're going to get that model. And it was the target of the trigger. we've thread this function on the trigger. So trigger at this time has become self. So we're going to get the int of self.target, target name. So the model is the target of the trigger because earlier we selected the trigger, then the model, and pressed W. That created an auto numbering system which will serve our purposes later when we want to add more or remove the number of shootables we want in Radiant. Next, we're going to wait for that trigger to be triggered or damaged. You can choose either one. Right now, we'll just wait for it to be triggered. So self, which is the trigger, wait till trigger. And we'll throw in to get the player that triggered it, just so I can show you that it is doing something. Next, once it is triggered or it is shot, we'll want to check the status of the EE. We can pass player as an argument to, and we'll add a print just to show you it doing something. So once it's triggered, call check EE and pass the player. And then in check EE, we'll want to update our level dot shootable EE for this shootable, and this shootable's key for this array was the same as the target name. So we'll use self.target name, which is the trigger's target name, because we called this function on the trigger, and we'll subtract it. So subtract 1. So if we had 3 triggers, we initialized this initially as 3, and when 1 is shot, this will become 2. After that, we'll check if level.shootable EE self.target name is less than or equal to 0. If it is, we shot them all. Else, we just shot another one. We just shot one. We didn't shoot them all yet. So just to indicate something, well, let's thread a function, that a reward for all function. And we'll pass the name of the shootable, which is the target name of the trigger. And here we'll thread shot 1 and also pass target name. So let's add these functions. Reward for all, and fix this typo. And we're going to say this is the EE type. The default value is going to be none, just in case we cause some type of error. This will help us troubleshoot later. So I print line bold, shot them all. And then we'll add what type. Add our other function, reward. Oh no, shot 1. shot1 EE type with a default value of nothing. And we'll also print, except for this time we'll get the player name. Since it's thread on the player up here, self is now in this function the player. So we'll get the player name and add shot1 and then the type. I've just added prints for now to show what is happening. We can add real rewards later. Let me just review. Here's a typo. Okay, so after we've checked that, we're now going to delete the model and the trigger because we want to show that something happened and clean up. The reason I called this function here is so that this function didn't move on to the next line until it was finished. So I wanted it to update the count and check before it moves to the next step, which will be to delete this model and to delete this trigger. So the script looks good enough to test the basic functionality now. We'll save that and we'll switch back to Radiant and leave this prefab. We'll take the prefab and copy it around a few times. Save that and compile our map. While that's compiling, we'll take the little notes we've left ourselves. In our map name, we'll have to add the call to init using the namespace tut, and we'll need to add the using for the script, and we'll save that. And then we'll add the script parse tree with the pass to the script to our zone. And that's finished. And next we'll link and we'll test if our script worked. So here we are in game. Makes sense, shot 1 S to R tut and shot them all S to R tut. So now that we've set up our objects in Radiant and our script in this way, we can change how many we have. We could do 3 or 6. And you don't have to change the script at all. We'll compile and link. We're back in game and we have 6 now. Shot 1, shot 1. Shot them all. Okay, well, the script can handle a different number of objects, but we designed it to handle multiple Easter eggs. So let's make another one. We'll copy this prefab and enter it and then save it as a different name. We'll say this tut with a B at the end and select the trigger and change the target name to have a B at the end, and we'll change the model and resize the trigger to fit the model and save and exit the prefab and then change the prefab to B. So there's our new prefab. Copy this around a few times. like so. And we'll compile the map, and while that's compiling, we'll come in and we added a new target name. So that's a new key for our array. That's a new Easter egg to track. And it was S2R tut B. So we just add that one line to the script. And then link after it's done compiling. Okay, back in game, we have our 6 original and our 5 new. Works like it did before. Now the new one. You see it's printing it with a B on the end because it's a different Easter egg. That one's completed. And that one's completed. And we can add as many as we like. And we'll only have to add one line with the new target name every single time. And we can copy the prefabs as many times as we like. Okay, from here we can continue with our rewards, and we could add a script noteworthy to the prefab of points and check passing the script noteworthy to this function and checking it and then giving points if it equals points. Or we could modify the way we've done this and use if is substring, the EE type. If a substring of that EE type is points, then give everyone points. Else give everyone something else. Now, none of our EE types have a substring of points. So let's take our first one and change it to points. Of course, this means that we'll have to change the target name of our first EE to match it, points. And let's comment this one out. And compile, link, and run. And we're back in game. We have our 6 and our 5. Now it's printing out the points KVP. Give everyone points for that Easter egg. This one here doesn't have a substring of points, so give everyone something else. That concludes my script to Radiant relationship tutorial. In the next one, I'll add effects, sounds. I'll add more functions to finish those rewards for points and other things. I'll add another shootable that has a clip so players and zombies can't walk through it.